Good morning, everyone. I'm happy that all of you can join us today because, of course, I'm a little biased, and I think this is probably going to be the best panel that you see over the course of the 2 days. By way of introduction, my name is Jamira Burley, and I am a part of the United Nations Youth Advocacy Group, a group of 18 young people from all over the world that focus on increasing access to education for both boys and girls. But the cool thing about this panel is that we're going to talk about empowering adolescent girls. And I'm truly honored to be joined by our 5 panelists who are all under the age of 25 and all are global youth leaders who are focused on a number of youth issues, particularly pertaining to girls' right to education. Now, despite recent improvements both in country and globally around girls' empowerment, education, and equality, largely due to global campaigns and regional campaigns such as Because I'm a Girl, Girls Rising, Girls with Books, and the Girl Effort done by the Nike Foundation. Even with those efforts, there are still girls who continue to face particular challenges that prevents them from accessing, completing, and fully benefiting in education opportunities. Why? Because they're girls. Because of the systematic discrimination that they face both in schools and in cultural settings, they don't have access to education and clearly cannot fully participate in society. Now, because of the amount of research that have been done over the last few years, we know that when you educate a girl, when you invest in a girl's education, you in fact educate an entire community. So over the course of the next 45 to an hour, we're going to talk about the experiences that these young women have faced, the roles in which empowerment has played in their development, and also how we as a collective community can move forward in making sure we educate girls in a way that really push the needle forward to better our entire society. But before we get started in our panel, I'm actually going to take the time to introduce our presenter who's going to give a brief presentation. Now, at the start of each panel session, we are reminded by the grassroots innovations going on in schools and around the world. It is critical to keep these presentations in mind because they have a clear focus on the importance of teachers and head teachers in innovation. With that being said, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our presenter, Ms. Bintu. Yes, please join us on the stage.
Thank you very much. My name is Bindu Kumari Bhatia, and I'm a teacher at SR Capital Public School in India. It's a privilege to be here in Dubai representing teachers, not just from India, but teachers across the world working, as I am to be a teacher change maker. I work as a teacher in a country with many challenges, like shortage of teachers, large class sizes, and lack of focus on learning outcome. But like many other teachers, I won't change, and I believe that I can contribute to this change by innovating in my own school. So to keep us focused on ground realities and the importance of teachers being part of the solution to the education reform, I would like to share one idea that one of my colleague teacher, Jasbir, has developed to improve the learning outcome. Jasbir is working in an NGO school, named Dipalya, at Kalkaji in Delhi. She was really frustrated at the time she lost discussing with individual student question at the beginning of every class, because she knew that she has a responsibility to cover the entire syllabus within time, and she really wanted to help her children improve in Hindi. But the students started every lesson crowding around her, asking questions, making complaints, and sharing news with her. She did not want to just close down the discussion because she believes strongly that teachers must know their students very well. And the students should be given chance to discuss the topic that interests them. So to overcome this problem, she found out a solution. She introduced a letterbox in the class and asked her students to drop their complaints by writing letters and notes or news which they want to share. And she used to collect those letters after the class, read them in her free period, And she did reply them within a week, either by talking to them during the quiet moments of the class, or after she organized to talk to them after the class in her free periods or after the school hours. So this idea is a hit. It's successful. I have also been using it because it not only saves the valuable teaching hours in the classes, but also it has improved the writing skill as well as the vocabulary of the children. So today, as we are talking about the empowering adolescent girl in this panel discussion, so girls, I think girls at this age, adolescent age, have a number of queries which they hesitate to ask their teachers and parents. And I think this idea can be used so that the girls can drop their questions with or without their names, and the teachers can give a solution to them. So thank you very much for your kind attention, and please enjoy the panel discussion. Thank you.
So I think it's one thing to recognize when you look at these women on the stage is that they all come from 5 different countries with 5 different backgrounds and expertise in a number of areas. And so they're truly the experts of their own experience. And so when we think about how these women were able to come here and be a part of this initiative and how they're able to lend their voice to the overall conversation around girls, I would like for each of these ladies to briefly introduce themselves, but also if you could tell us how were you empowered in the work that you do to allow you to get to where you are today. And we'll start with you, Nina.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Jamira. My name is Bertheline Tchangoue. I'm a youth advocate from Cameroon and also a member of the youth advocacy group of the Global Education First Initiative. In fact, in Cameroon, I work as an activist to make sure that the girl child has equal access and opportunities as far as education is concerned. And what really inspired me to get started with this initiative, when I was 11 years old, when I started the secondary school, I was having my best friend called Maimuna, and we were schooling. She was more than a friend. She was like my sister. So I like Maimuna so much. And one day Maimuna stopped coming to class. I was like, but where is Maimuna? After 1 week, I was not seeing Maimuna. I was not, in fact, it really made me to be obsessed. I was so worried. I was no more concentrating on my studies. I was no more eating. It's after 2 weeks that Maimuna sent me a letter telling me that she was married off. Her father gave her into marriage to a friend who is 61 years old. And the father was owing that friend $300. So the father could not reimburse that $300. So in exchange of that money, the father got Maimuna, my friend, into marriage. So I said, I can't accept this. I can't be in class. I can't enjoy my life. Why Maimuna is not also in class like me? So when I felt sick, my father brought me to the hospital. When we reached the hospital, the doctor said, your child is not sick. Your child is stressed. She's tired. She has to rest. So when we came back home, my father told me, can you tell me what is really the problem? So I gave Maimuna letter to my father. I said, if you don't help Maimuna to come back to school, I will not go to school because Maimuna is my sister. So my father contacted his friends who were human rights activists. That's how Maimuna came back to class, and she continued her studies. So from there, now when Maimuna came back to class, we decided as students to form a girl club in school in order to raise issues that pertain to girls' rights, girls' sexual reproductive health. In fact, the girl club was all about giving the voice to the girl child to say what she has in her mind, to say no to what she doesn't accept. So that's how I started I get interested into this advocacy work today. And from that girl club now, we started organizing parents' forums, discussion where we educate parents about the importance of girls' education. We also have a lot of radio programs within a town. And there was a very big impact because many schools in town started the same initiative. They started creating girl club in their school environment. And that's how we came out as a synergy, working together to make sure the gay right is being respected. And that's how, in fact, the power of young people coming together is very important in advocacy. I think bringing together young people, as we are sitting here today, is very powerful because putting their voices together is a means to raising the issues that concern them and to see how we can bring solutions. So that's what I have to say for this beginning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Aminata Pama, and I'm from Sierra Leone. And I'm a member of the Children's Home Network, and I'm also a youth activist. And if I'm going to go back to what inspired me to start this all, when I was in class 5, a friend of mine, we were in class together, and she said to me one day, Aminata, come on, let's go to this group. She stated it that way, let's go to this group, and they do acting, and I loved acting. So it was just another way to get out of class for me. So I said, okay, good, let's go. And we went for the first meeting and the second meeting, and like I said, whenever there is a program or we have to go to the radio or the television, they'll go and get me out of class, and I was happy. So at first, it was nothing. Then one day we went on an advocacy tour, and we went to the Kube community. It's a slum in my country, and we went to this particular family, and there was this girl and a brother, and they were really skinny. It's like they were sick or something, but they were not sick. They were just hungry, and in a way, I relate to that because I come from a very poor and disturbed background, but sometimes I'm at home and I see my mommy starves herself just so that I can eat. And I saw these children, and they were on their own, no parents. Their story was the war got them separated from their parents and all. And so at that moment, something touched me. And it was like, this is no joke. Look at you and look at these children. They can't do it for themselves. They are in this situation, but there is no way they can help themselves. But you have the opportunity to help them. Why don't you grab it? And so at that instant, there was this urge that just came over me, and I got empowered. I couldn't stop myself. I just wanted to talk and represent and advocate children. And girls and boys, I advocate for both boys and girls. But when I look at the ratio between girls and boys, talking about the abuse and all other things they're facing, I realize girls are having it at a higher level than the boys. So if I'm a girl, why not fight for my own? So then immediately I started focusing on girls, because I think in a way when the boys grow up, when we all grow up in the society creates a more relaxed environment for boys. Even if they're abused or even if they go through some things as children, as they grow older because of opportunities and stuff, they can get over it. But girls, when we get older, it gets worse. So, and most girls, because of our gender, they don't have the guts to come out and speak for themselves. And so if there are people like us who can do it, why not? So I think, and I believe girls' empowerment and representing girls is the utmost, it gives me the utmost satisfaction, and I love it, and I just want to see girls get up there and women get up there. And I don't want men or boys to see girls as, I don't even like when boys look, or when people do something for girls because of their gender. I don't appreciate that, because to me, gender is nothing. What you can do, I can do. So why do we have to make an issue because you're a man, I'm a woman. So I get annoyed sometimes when people use gender as an excuse to do things. So that's why, that's like the story I just said was the main inspiration for me, and that's what got me going. And up to now, the experiences that I've had are great and they're vast, and every day the things that I see in my country just keeps me going, keeps me going. It gives me it makes me believe that what you're doing is the right thing, and you don't need to stop until girls are being seen as equal partner in development, until the abuse has stopped, until they're okay in their marriages, until they get education, until everything is okay, you will continue. And even if it takes forever, we will continue.
Thank you. Ashwini?
Thank you. Namaskar and hello to all of you who have gathered here. I would like to start with Mahatma Gandhi's quotes. When you educate a man, you educate one person. But when you educate a woman, you educate a whole family. But if we ask ourselves that girls with disabilities are really leading their lives normally? No, they are not. The 3 incidents in my life has impacted me to fight for the education for girls with disabilities. Firstly, I met a girl who is sexually harassed in her family, but she was kept quiet because of the unawareness of her rights and lack of education. And I have met a lady who is around 35 years old. She was placed in a congested room and food was thrown in a small hole and plate was not washed since a month. And a lady a lady with disability who is thrown out of her family and she was begging on the road. These 3 incidents have impacted me to fight, and I work for Leonard Cheshire Disability Young Voices, the global campaign of youth with disabilities India. And through this Young Voices, I could hear the problems of all girls with disabilities, and now I can solve this. As a girl with disability, I face a huge discrimination, exclusion, guilt treatment of girls with disabilities, and lack of education opportunities. But somehow I could struggle hard, and I could get the quality of education. So I'm the lucky ones to uh, get education, and it has instilled in me a great belief in myself and in millions of girls with disabilities. To my dear girls with disabilities, I say, do not fear raising your voice for your freedom and dignity. So I ask each and every one of you to join me in fighting for the rights of education for girls with disabilities. As Malala Yousafzai said on her 16th birthday, one teacher, one child, one book, and one pen can change the whole world. So I say a girl with disabilities can create a wealthy and healthy society of thousands of people. I am a great example of what can be achieved as a girl with disability if education is provided to her. I thank everybody who is listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Cheryl Perera, and I'm the founder and president of One Child. We're an organization that empowers young people to take action against the child sex trade. I'm also a master's student studying advanced studies in children's rights, and I'm from Toronto, Canada. I think my own personal story is kind of a testament of how education transforms people. I was a very awkward teenager, 16 years old, living in Toronto, Canada. And one day, when I was researching for a project in my grade 10 civics class, I took a trip to the library and I took out a book. And as I was flipping through this book, my eyes fixated on a description of a place in Bangkok, Thailand called Pat Pong. And this description basically in this book talked about Pat Pong as a gaudy nightlife district where child prostitution was rampant. It's a place where foreigners flood the area for alcohol and cheap recreational sex with children. And these children come from the north of Thailand, the northeast of Thailand, very poor rural areas, and they come to the city thinking that they're going to be working as domestic servants or as waitresses, and then find themselves dancing in nightclubs. The girls wearing skimpy bikinis, in some cases boys wearing skimpy thongs with a number pinned to each. And a man will order a child like one would order a drink. And so when I read this, I was absolutely floored. I was angry. I couldn't help but kind of compare my life to the lives of these children, and the differences were astounding to me. I decided at that point that I could get as angry as I want to, but it's not going to change the situation for these children. I knew I had to do something. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I was going to do something. And so I decided to go and learn more. And I went to the library, took out as many books as I could, went on the internet, and I spoke to some of my teachers. And some of my teachers were very, very supportive. They really kind of nurtured this sense of global citizenship in me. They answered my questions. And I really had that support from the educators around me. They kept pushing me and saying, you can do this, you can keep going. And I decided that after a while, those reading about these children, the stats, the stories, it just wasn't enough. I actually wanted to go to a country and I wanted to meet the children. I wanted to hear their stories of exploitation, abuse, and specifically ask them, what can I do as a young person to help? And so I decided that I would go. My parents are from Sri Lanka, and so I decided that I would try and see if I could take 3.5 months off of high school to travel to Sri Lanka on a fact-finding mission to learn more about child exploitation, the child sex trade. And so you can imagine, I'm trying to take 3.5 months off of high school. You can imagine how that would go over with my parents. But I have a way of kind of wearing my parents down to the point that they actually give in. And they were very much on board. And my high school principal was very supportive as well. She just said, Cheryl, I give you my blessing. Go to Sri Lanka. Just take your homework with you. I promised I would do that. And I went to Sri Lanka by myself and went around meeting with children who were living and working on the streets. Children who were working as laborers, children in prostitution. I wanted to get an insider's look into the child sex trade, particularly. This is the issue that really got me angry. And so I ended up working with the National Child Protection Authority in Sri Lanka in an undercover sting operation. What I wanted to do was to get this insider's look into the child sex trade, so I was offered the opportunity to play the main role of the decoy, playing the role of a 15-year-old child prostitute in this sting operation. The police had been tracking a man. He was married with 2 kids. He was assistant general manager of finance department of a multinational corporation, and he had been posting on a child pornography site that he was interested in very young girls. And my job was to basically play that role, meet with this man, and if he liked the way that I looked, we would get up to go to the hotel, and that would be the cue for the police to move in and make the arrest. And so for about 2 months, I worked with the police. I trained with them, learned how to work with spy technology, learned how to fake an accent. And when that day came, I met with this man, and over the course of an hour, he spoke to me in very graphic detail of the kind of sexual services he was interested in getting from me. And for that sliver of that hour, I understood what it feels like to have your childhood completely something to be bought and sold, just a commodity. In the end, we decided on a price. We were getting up to go to the hotel. The police moved in and they made the bust. And I remember it was a bit bittersweet for me. On the one hand, I was very happy that this man was off the street. He couldn't hurt another child. But on the flip side, I couldn't help but feel very dirty. And all I did was talk to this man, and I thought, if I feel this way, just from speaking to him, how must the children in Thailand feel, serving up to 26 customers a day? So this experience of kind of getting this insider's look into the child sex trade prompted me to come back to Canada. And start telling my story of going undercover, of the stories of the children that I met. And I decided to start an organization that empowered young people. I gave them the tools, the training, the skills, the opportunities to raise awareness about the child sex trade, to influence policy, and to also fundraise so that we can provide support for children who have been rescued from the sex trade. And so to this date, One Child's been in operation since 2005. We've spoken to over 62,000 young people about the child sex trade, empowering them to take a stand, talking to them about many of the root causes like lack of education. And for instance, we've raised over $187,000 to build a rehabilitation center in the Philippines to provide girls who've been rescued from the sex trade with shelter, with vocational skills training, with therapy, with education, formal and non-formal, legal assistance, medical assistance, leadership training, human rights training. I think as a children's rights activist, I've really seen some of the true benefits of education and how it can really, really restore life to many of these children who have been rescued from the child sex trade. One in particular is my friend Marianne from the Philippines, who at the age of 13 ran away from home because her mother's new boyfriend had moved into the home and started abusing her and preventing her from going to school. She ran to the streets, and it was there that she was picked up by a pimp and brought to a club called the G-Spot. And she was there thinking that she was going to be a waitress, was handed a bikini, told to dance on stage, and she was only 13 years old. Our partner organization in the Philippines, the Perera Foundation, they found out about Marianne and 5 other minors who were working in that club, and they went to go rescue her. And it took so much effort for them to undo all the brainwashing that they did to these children. They brought Marianne back to the center. She underwent intensive therapy. Slowly but surely, they managed to ease her into the public school system. She graduated with honors, won several leadership awards, and she ended up becoming a social worker, now works for the Perera Foundation and is a staunch children's rights activist who travels all around the world speaking out in defense of the rights of children. Mm-hmm. I think this is a truly, it's an inspirational story for me, and it keeps me doing what I'm doing. But it also, on the one hand, I have seen these great stories, but I've also seen the worst, what can happen when these children don't have access to education, quality education. I've traveled around and I have spent my time in sex bars and clubs. I have interviewed children, I've interviewed convicted child sex offenders who have actually justified their actions saying it was okay for me to sexually abuse or sexually be with a child sexually as long as I pay for their school fees. I have sat in primal cry therapy sessions holding children who are 6, 7, 8 years old, who have only known abuse and exploitation, sit there, and I had to hold these children in my arms as they kicked and screamed and let out all that trauma that they had to face. I've stood at the gravesite of one young girl who at the age of 12 was picked up off the street, was brought by a tourist to his hotel room, forced to take a shower with him. The man used a sexual instrument on the girl, left a 5-inch long screw inside of her. She got an infection and died. This is the result. When I think of all of these stories, the common denominator is the fact that these children did not go to school, or when they were in school, it was not a safe environment. So my question, I think, that I'd like you to really kind of think about as an overarching theme as we continue with the panel is how many children have to fall through the cracks until we finally realize and really invest in the power of education as a preventative tool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamira. And hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Anusheh. I'm from Pakistan. Okay, so my story isn't that inspirational or isn't that motivational and as of those we have over here, but before I move on to my story, I have a really interesting fact to share with you guys, rather an interesting observation. What I observed during the last 2 days of the conference, we don't even have equal representation of males and females at the conference. Yeah, and along with that, it's even more interesting to see that only two out of 32 two ministers over here are females. It's a point, actually, a moment to think on how we should go on about, how should we move on to empower women. Actually, how should we work to have women at leadership roles, to voice what has been going on with women, to voice what has been going on at grassroots level, as we have seen some of the experience being shared by Cheryl, Nina, and yes. So I'm from Pakistan. When I say I'm from Pakistan, most of you would be thinking how I'm here, because Pakistan is most probably a country where women are ill-treated, where education for women is not that common. But what I want you guys to know is it's not what's going on over there. Okay, we have some areas, some tribal areas, where women are prevented, where women are not allowed to be educated. But most of all, why I'm here, the reason I'm here is because my father supported me. He's sitting right here with me. He came with me because I'm a minor. So I want you guys to know that education is very, very much important for people, and even more important for women. Other than that, how I came to work for education was my mother is actually, she worked with a private shelter home in Lahore. So over there, different women from different backgrounds were coming. They were harassed, abused, divorced, and they were coming over there mostly because they weren't educated, mostly because they didn't know about their rights. They didn't know the agencies they have to contact or the platforms where they can go to and tell about their stories. They didn't know how to contact government, so they used to run away from the government, and the shelter homes, shelter home authorities usually had to take them off the streets and help them. So I was 16 then or 15 when my mother was working over there. So actually I came to know that how women from different backgrounds have to face harassment, abuse, exploitation on hand of men. So and the major factor why they were facing this was because they weren't educated or because they didn't know what their rights were. So most of them were above the age of 15 or so. So what was happening over there in the shelter home was that they were training those women to empower themselves. They were giving them vocational skills and stuff like that. So that's what I'm working on now to try. Actually, I'm working basically on education as a whole, but we have that one part in my program where we're going to focus women. So that's all. So we're going to empower them by imparting vocational skills and life skills. So, yeah,
Thank you.
all.
So, if you're in the audience, I'm sure many of you are, again, in awe about the extraordinary adversities that many of these young women have overcome to really be on the stage today. And I just, because we're running out of time, I just have one question before we actually turn it over to the audience, because I do want to give them time to ask questions. Even though there are multiple barriers to women having access to education and women having empowerment, everything from child marriage to poverty to disabilities to trafficking and even empowerment within the workplace, how have you been empowered to do the work that you're doing, and who has really helped to empower you to be here today? And anyone can answer. Start off.
Okay, I'll go first. Well, like Cheryl was saying, education is the most important thing. For me, I think there is no future without education, whether for girls or for boys, because in the next 10, 20 years to come, the world is changing, the world is growing fast, and to drive a tractor, you need to read a manual. And if you didn't go to school, then it will be a problem. You won't be part of the workforce, you won't be part of society, and I'm not saying it will be nobody's fault, but all I'm saying is I think education is the key to eradicating poverty, is the key to the future. Education is not an option, it's the only solution. And so, your question was, who has empowered us to continue doing our work? Well, there are mentors. There are people that did do it when no one thought they could. And so there are people like that we look up to. But for me, it's always personal. It goes back to me. It goes back to my mother. She didn't go to school, but I've seen her all through these years. I'm in my final year in university now, and all through these years, I've seen that woman did some really, really hard work just to make sure I get there. So it's personal. She's like my driving force. And I want to succeed for myself, but more, I want to succeed for her. And when I advocate, when I do advocacy work, I can't reach most of the children that I represent. I can't help them physically. So, but somehow my words goes out to people that can help. And so the children, the millions of girls that don't go to school in Sierra Leone, that don't go to school in Africa, that don't go to school in all over the world, they are my force of motivation. The fact that what the future will look like without them going to school, what is it is now, and what it will look like without education for them. Those are my driving force. I sit back, I sit in my room, and I look at myself, where I've come from, where my family has come from, and where we are now, and I say, it's all because I went to school. And so if my mother didn't go to school and we started there, and I have gone to school and we're here, then with education, things can change. So it doesn't matter whether girls are being, it matters whether they're being abused or marginalized right now. But I believe, like she said, it's only because most women, most girls don't go to school. They don't know what their rights are. That is why most of these problems are in existence in the first place. Because if you know your rights, you know your responsibilities, you know what you're entitled to, you know what you're not entitled to, then I believe things will be easy. And that all comes from education. So going to school is the utmost priority for me. It's a future.
So would you say that education has the ability to activate leadership qualities within young women?
Of course. Of course.
And you think that because even though your mother didn't go to school and you went to school, you were able to then break that cycle?
Yes, of
Okay.
course. That's exactly you. I couldn't have put it better. I placed it better. My mother didn't go to school and I went to school, and now I've break the cycle, the ignorant cycle. Nobody can do anything to me that they are not supposed to do. Nobody can do something to my mother that they are not supposed to do, to my sister, to any member of my family. And so if just one person, for one girl or one woman from a family or from a community goes to school, then you see the change. What if all of them do go to school?
That's a great point.
Yes, if I would like to answer for your question, of course. I'm from India and a rural community. When I was a child, 4.5 years old, my parents tried to educate me, admit me in a integrated school. But the school teachers have insulted my parents, and my parents started crying for my disability. Then, whatever the problems I face, it did not make me to sit in a particular place, but it really made me to grow strong and think strong. So what I thought, anyhow, my father brought me to a city called Bangalore, and he has admitted me to a special school. And because of my disability, I was forced to stay away from my parents, because my parents stayed in a rural community and I had to stay in city. So this in fact made me to educate people with disabilities, children with disabilities. In fact, my relatives used to insult my parents and indirectly insult my parents, and I was seated at a particular place in a corner, and I was just insulted. Whatever the experience that I have faced personally has motivated me to give education for girls with disabilities, especially girls with disabilities.
Thank you.
And Jamira, in a minute, I want to throw light on the role of men.
So male allies in the roles of empowering girls.
Yes. Because if we're talking about girls' education, if we're talking about women, we need not to forget the fact that men are counterparts. We all form part of society, and men can play a very great role in helping women reach their goals, in helping women get educated. They are husbands, they are our fathers, they are partners, and biblically it was made that way. And so all men need to do is support women.
So what would you say to the men that say women can't do it, that women can't be educated?
Well,
Yes.
I don't talk to such men because, like I was saying, yeah, there's nothing for me to say to them. Like, you're stupid. If this is the 21st century and you're there saying women can be educated, then I don't talk to you. And
As you shouldn't.
And I'm saying, when like I said earlier on, I don't like men doing things for me because I'm a woman. No, do something for me because I'm a person. And don't think I'm weak. I'm a weaker sex. I'm marginalized. No. And women that are going through abuses in their, if a man punches me, and if a man can't punch me because I'm not a woman, because I'm a woman. Sorry, a man doesn't punch me because I'm a woman. It will not punch me because it will think back of my throwback punch. Because if you hit me, I'll hit you, and then we can go to the law as people.
So let me ask this question before we turn over to the audience then. What role can men play in preventing poverty and preventing trafficking, preventing and promoting empowerment for women? What is that role?
Actually, I want to relate my personal experience over here. My dad's here, and he actually pushed my mother to be educated, because when she got married, she was only a graduate, and now she has completed her MPhil and is like working for her PhD. So that's a great inspiration for all of you sitting over here, all the men in our society, that they should actually help their women, help their wives, their daughters get education. When they can provide them with, they can help them by like small things, by doing small things. They matter a lot. Yeah, that's it.
Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, come back to your question, the other question before answering this one. I wanted to say that when I was still young, my mother was like, Nina, stand fine, fix your shoes, fix your dress, why are you like that, why are you like this? But when I would reach to school, my mathematics teacher would say, Nina, you're a very good girl, I like the way you behave, so I want you to come and do this for me. In fact, it was like, in the house, I'm always being criticized. In school, I'm being encouraged. So that's how I get empowered. I got inspired. In fact, I got self-confidence from my teacher. And one day I told my mother, but Mom, why are you always criticizing me, saying that this is wrong, this is not right? It made me to feel as I'm less. It doesn't give me motivation or encouraging me. So in fact, empowerment can be at the level of home, as at the level of school. So we need to make sure we control the way we address our children, especially the girl child, because you can speak anyhow to a girl and she will take it as a disadvantage, and she'll be afraid to express herself, and that's how she'll be isolated. She'll feel isolated. So concerning how we can include men into the fight for girl equality, I can say that during such forum like this one, you have to make sure the participants are both men and girls. I mean, men and women, or girls and boys. You should not just bring only girls or bring only boys. I mean, bring only girls to girls session relating to their right. You should bring mix
So it should be a lot more diverse in regards to male and female population.
Yeah. And also, I'm very surprised that there's no man here to say that it's good for a girl to be empowered, because it's to the men that will know that there's equality, there should be equality between a man and a woman. So when there are all of us women, it's since they're fighting for adolescent, they're empowering adolescent girl, there's no need for us as men to contribute.
Nina, this is a war and we're fighting for our own. So I think this is great that we're all girls. You've got to fight for your own. If a man was here, he would have messed it up already.
Okay, on that note, we're going to take one lucky question from the audience who I would hit on you, Hannah, but you're awesome. So we're going to take one from a male because Nina thinks that their perspective is important to this conversation. So yes.
Ladies, great job. I'll keep my question really, really specific. You're here, you're youth advocates. You're important at conferences like this because you do things. You don't talk about it. You're not here to advocate massive. You're on the ground, you want to do things. So my question for you is, what can we do? I'd love to hear the North American perspective. You're working on global things, but you have a North American perspective. I'd love to hear the other regional perspectives. Give us two things, not policy, not big things. What can we do? What can people do? When I say we, whether it's men, whether it's everybody else, what can people in the room here do? What are two things in your minds that we can do when we get home that will start to change the process in your eyes?
Want to start, Nina?
Yeah, that's a very strategic question and really interesting. So, concerning what we can do, because it's good for they have been organizing a lot of meetings, Rio Plus 20, meet about this, meet about that, but we keep on talking, we don't really give a concrete ideas on how things can really go on the field. So what we can do is that we are here from different cultures, different countries, and our context differ. So what can work well in Pakistan cannot be good in Cameroon, for instance. So I think that what we are doing here is exchanging best practices. So that if you say, because for instance, for me, I think that what we can do is to start organizing mentorship in our various communities where girls can be empowered on leadership skills, communication skills, active citizenship. Because organizing this mentorship is like mentorship to give them self-confidence in order to be involved. I don't know whether I answer your question. To always include girls in everything we do, because that's a way to make them know that they also count in the decision-making process.
Anyone else?
Yeah, to answer your question, firstly, it was what we can do. Well, I'll tell you what you can do. You can look around your environment and find two girls or two young people that are not going to school and send them to school, because it doesn't have to be global. It doesn't have to be a whole country. You first of all start personally. That's what I do. I have a young boy and I have a girl. She stays with my aunt, and the boy is around my neighborhood, and I don't work, but my lunch money, I pay for their schools. I've sent them both to school, and the boy is in class 4 and the girl is in class 5. I send them to school. I give them lunch money from my lunch money, and so it's not all about big. When I think of things to do, I don't think big most time. Because involving people will take time, and if you want to do something, if you want something to be done, if you start, then others will see and they'll like what you've done, and then they will want to come and join and they want to come and help. So for me, it has to start personally. I'm very concerned with personal things. It has to start. If you first of all have to believe. You first of all, the change has to start with you first, and then as a group globally, worldwide, I believe involving the private sector is something that will help, because in the future, the private sector the world is, like I said, the world is improving, the world is globalizing, and so the private sector need more graduates. They need more people to get in their network, and if there will be the ones benefits when people get educated. So it's only right if they help in making sure people get educated, girls get educated, and they can donate money. They can make sure they can bring up schemes to make sure that the financial aids are shared equally, and see that there is equity in the division of money that go to school. They can bring up mechanisms to ensure that girls go and stay in schools, and they can help out whatever way they can. I believe those are the things that we can do.
Thank you. We're going to take
To
one more.
answer your question, I would say find your way of your interest to do. If you are interested to do, to contribute to the disabled, or if you interest to contribute to only girls or whatever, then if you are interested to contribute to the disabled, okay, join me so that we can change the whole world. That's what I mean to say. And if you want to contribute to the girls, okay, you just find girls who are really living their uncomfortable life, and so you can counsel them, and you can share the experience that all of us have shared here, and so that you can do whatever you want. Thank you.
Cheryl?
As you said, young people aren't just talking about things, they're working on the ground, and they're the boots on the ground. So I think that they should be able to have the opportunity to lead the change. I think where everyone else can come in is to support them in that endeavor. So I'm going to give you a few tangible ways that you can do that. One is to get on boards. Youth-led organizations like mine, like One Child, we can't do it alone. We need the expertise from business, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So we need people who have that experience to kind of scale up the organization. So definitely get on board, on board of directors. Also providing funding for young people to start their own projects, providing like mini grants for them to do their own thing. It builds up their own self-esteem, their confidence, and at the same time they're able to affect change for other young people. Also, for the good examples, good practices, allow opportunities for young people who are doing good work and are involved in good practices, allow them to share those opportunities and share what they're doing to inspire action in others.
Thank you. Last.
So adding on to what the others just said, I would just say that you can mentor people. Like if you can generally just sensitize your own children, because I think most of you are parents. So you can just give this message to your children to be socially responsible, to see what's going on in the world. And then there's another big issue about empowering girls, which we have over here, that is that many of the girls which are illiterate are above the age of 15. So what do we do about them? You can actually link them to some vocational institutions where they can just learn some skills or stuff like that, so they can actually do something on their own and earn something for themselves and be empowered. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. So just to close out real quick, some of the things that I heard is that even though there are multiple barriers to women having access to education and empowering them to have roles in leadership, these young women are clear examples that there are possible ways to engage them and to push them into roles of leadership. So I just want to commend them for the work that they're doing. And also, if we're talking about next steps, all of these young women will be here for the rest of the day. And so I will encourage you to talk to each of them and find out ways that you can engage in the work that they do, both in their country and on the global scale. So again, thank you, ladies, for joining us on this panel.